Alright, we have something special today, but before I get started, I do have to give a bit of a warning or a disclaimer, and that is that this is going to be a long video. If you're looking for a 10-minute MRE review, you're not going to find it in this video, and I would definitely suggest taking a look at the total length of this video and seeing if it's something you'd be interested in watching, and otherwise maybe find another video that'd be more to your liking. I basically put that in so I don't have to answer all the comments down below about how this is way too long, it should be a lot shorter, I shouldn't talk so much, this, that, and the other thing. Basically, I realize this is a brown bag MRE and it can be reviewed in a short amount of time, and many of them have been. And it's just that in this case, it's something that's very special that I really do need to get into a lot of detail about. So I apologize if it's too long, but luckily there are other videos that probably more to your liking. And with all that being said, what exactly makes this one special? Well, back in October 2016, the first ever MRE Symposium was held. It took place in Doswell, Virginia at a gun show, and it was organized by Black Dog Bob from MREinfo.com. Many members of MREinfo were there, along with many members of the Ration Review community. And the founder of MREinfo.com, Kman, had actually brought with him a case of 1991 MREs. And these photos from MREinfo.com show the exact case that we're talking about. Now, a case of 1991 MREs isn't exactly a rare or extremely collectible item, but Kman had brought this along to share with everybody when they all gathered before or after the show. I was really hoping to be able to get to the event, but unfortunately was not able to. And in the forums at MREinfo.com, the case was discussed, and there was a joke about the Omelet with Ham. And I had made a comment that if I was able to make it, I actually wouldn't mind trying it out as long as it was stored well. Of course, like I said, I wasn't able to make it, and I pretty much thought that was the end of it. But a couple of weeks later, I was contacted by MREinfo member Name Not Found, who also has a Ration Review channel, NNFmreinfo, and he and Kman had actually conspired to send me the MRE in question. It seems sort of like it was kind of a joke, but at the same time, it actually happened, and I'm going to go ahead and review this. So this MRE, in addition to being an old brown bag MRE, also has a lot of ties to the Ration Review community and to MREinfo.com, as well as that great event in Doswell. And in this photo, taken from one of Steve1989 MREinfo's videos, you can see Steve and Old Smoky looking at the MREs. And if you look close, you can actually see that Steve has in his hand this exact MRE. And I think all of that information makes this a pretty special MRE to be reviewing. But that's actually not the end of the story. After NNF sent me this MRE, I was getting ready to review it, and meanwhile, a package came in from Steve1989. He sent along a number of interesting things to review, and one of them just happened to be an old brown bag MRE. But not just any old brown bag MRE, it's a menu number 4, you probably can't see this, Omelet with Ham, which is the same menu as the one in question. I don't know if Steve had seen my comment about how I would like to try one, but however it worked out, I have the MRE that he handled at Doswell, and I also have an MRE that he sent me. So when I told him I had two of them, he had mentioned that I should probably compare the two, and I think that actually makes a lot of sense. When you're doing an old brown bag MRE, it really is a crapshoot. You really don't know what you're going to get. It's fun to open them, it's fun to see what's inside, see if anything's edible, but for the most part, it's most likely not going to be something that you're really going to want to eat. Part of that is because unless you have owned these all along, you don't know how they've been stored for the last 20 or 30 years. The thing that's interesting about this one is I do have some idea of the history. First off, it was still sealed in the case. That's always a good thing. And Kman actually had some history. The person who donated it to him said that it spent its first couple years in Panama. That could be good or bad. I don't know how it was stored down there. But he said after that, it's basically been stored in a cool basement since then, so it should be pretty good. And from what I've heard from the Doswell show, most of the ones that they ate down there were good. There were some components that had gone bad, but for the most part, it was all pretty edible. So I have a good idea what to expect from this. But to make it more interesting, the one that Steve sent me, you can kind of see it looks a little bit different. This one looks, it's pretty much, seems to be in perfect shape. It looks kind of brand new because it just came right out of a case. This one Steve said he picked up at a flea market for a couple of bucks, and he has no idea how it was stored. He has a feeling it was probably out in the sun for a long time. So even though these look very much similar, and they're the same menu from probably around the same time, I have a feeling there's going to be a difference in the quality of what's left inside of these. And with the old brown bag MREs, there's no date code on the bag, so you really don't know from the outside, other than a certain range, when they came from. Menu number 4, Omelet and Ham, was around from 1988 to 1994. We know this one's from 1991 because we know the case that it came from, that has the date code on it when it was produced. So this one here could be anywhere from 1988 to 1994, which narrows it down a bit, but we're obviously going to have to go inside of this to check it out and see what's in here. So I think that's about enough talk, and now let's go ahead and get started and look at what's inside of these and try them out. We're going to start off with the 1991 menu number 4 Omelet with Ham. This was packaged by the Sinpak company, Sinpak Incorporated, in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm guessing Sinpak means Cincinnati Packing. So they obviously had different manufacturers back then. Sinpak, there was Cadillac at one point. This one here, the other one, the one that Steve sent me, is from Rafco Freeze Dry Incorporated, MRE division. So they didn't exactly have really catchy names. I mean, obviously these companies that had government contracts. So you have Sinpak and Rafco Freeze Dry Incorporated, MRE division, McAllen, Texas. But the 1991 one from the symposium, I think it's kind of interesting. It's actually packaged very similar to an IMP, a Canadian IMP, in that it obviously has 2 cardboard boxes that are on either side with the rest of the stuff in the middle, giving it kind of a square, almost box-like appearance. The old brown bags did not have the peelable seal that they have nowadays. They had a little notch in the top where you could just tear it open. Just for the sake of keeping this looking pretty good, I'm going to actually cut it from the back instead of using that. And here's the components, and with the, as I said, the 2 boxes. It just smells like old plastic, kind of like something plastic that had been stored in an attic for a long time. There's no bad smell coming off of it. That's the good news. Let's pull all this stuff out. So you can find the menus for old MREs at MREinfo.com. And I did take a look, so there wasn't really a lot of surprises here, but of course we are going to obviously take a look at everything that's in here. Here's the Omelet with Ham, with its modest amount of ingredients. I don't know if those are actually all the ingredients or if it's just what they put back in the days before they had to put all the information on here, all the nutritional information. And let's see. There's no date code printed on here, but there is a one stamped kind of lightly here. It looks like 1050, which would be the 50th day of 1991. So pretty early in 1991, actually. So this is our omelet. And this is back in the days when the some of the entrees, or most entrees, were small. This is only 6 ounces. And we have a side too with this one, potatoes au gratin. Hopefully this will be this will have survived. I wouldn't mind trying this out. Here's the ingredients on that. And this has date code printed on it. A lot of numbers there, but what we're concerned about is the 1073, meaning that this was packaged on the 73rd day of 1991. We also have the old crackers, the different colored packaging too for these things. The crackers, and for that we have peanut butter. I'm sorry, we have cheese spread. I thought that was peanut butter. And I see our first glimpse of some package failing, and that the lamination started to come off of here, come apart a little bit. That's not at all uncommon. This is from Thermopack in Stone Mountain, Georgia. Let's see, I have a little imperfection right there. But everything seems fine. You know, it's just old. This is cocoa beverage powder, type 1 fortified. And this is all very powdery. This should be just fine. There's something a little bit special here. We have the oatmeal cookie bar. And I always love these just because the vacuum seal on it is it's so tight. Oh, and they had actually put in, I was expecting one of the white spoons from the early days, but they had to put the brown spoons in at this point. So we have a standard brown MRE spoon. And then we have another packaging. So we have the brown, the gray, and we also have paper packaging. And this is a beverage-based powder, orange, from the 71st day of 1991. 134th day of 1991 on the cookie bar. So obviously whatever the latest date is that you can find, that's probably the closest to when it was the entire thing was packaged. Cocoa beverage powder has, that's interesting, the date's going down, 1030. So that'll be end of January. And the cheese spread, 1067. Probably hard to read there. And I suppose since we're checking these out, let's see what the crackers say. A few years before this, they really didn't have date codes on much of anything, maybe the entree and the side. But by this point, most of the stuff did have a date code, but apparently not everything. The crackers do not seem to have a date code. But obviously there's plenty of stuff that you can date it in there. And then we have accessory pack. I forgot to mention that this is accessory packet B. Oh, actually, it says accessory packet B on the bag, but we actually have accessory packet C, which has instant coffee, cream substitute, sugar, salt, chewing gum, matches, toilet tissue, hand cleaner, and candy. I remember when I was in the Army, we actually had the brown bags, and it was just like this. You'll notice there's no hot beverage bag and there's no flameless ration heater, because this is a few years before those came in. But these weren't anywhere near as palatable or as good as the ones are nowadays. And I used to love getting one of these higher letter accessory packets that had the candy in it. It's kind of like a special surprise being able to open this up and finding like a chocolate fudge bar in here or something like that. And this does have a date code on it, 1141. And here's the contents of this 1991 MRE, but the only thing left to check is the contents of the accessory packet. Let's take a look at those. That is an interesting smell. Not particularly bad, but a little bit kind of like oily, plasticky, chemically. Let's see, that may come from coming from the candy. All right. We have Taster's Choice coffee. Ooh la la. And of course we have the sugar and the creamer for that. We have the toilet paper, moist towelette, which has its own date code, 1024. Matches. Oh, we have the Tabasco sauce, which actually, look at that. It's completely liquid. It's a good sign. Salt, chewing gum, and milk caramels. I'm guessing that this is where the smell is coming from. Let's have a little bit of give to them. They're not, don't seem to be rock hard. They seem to be hard, but not rock hard. So, normally with an old MRE like this that didn't come with a flameless ration heater, I would just eat it cold. But to try and give it its best chance of being good, I'm going to go ahead and heat up the omelet and the potatoes au gratin in some hot water. And while they're heating up, we'll go ahead and take a look at everything else. Although I suppose we should actually open these boxes up on camera too, just to make sure there isn't anything interesting to report inside of here. Now, this is interesting. A silver foil pouch instead of the green or the darker ones that they used to have. I remember even in the late 80s they actually had the darker pouches, but that's an interesting difference. This is more like what we'd expect. These old greenish ones. Potatoes feel very loose in here. This is I think this is a good sign. Can't really read anything on this side, but this side has pot au gratin 1073, which is the exact same date as on the box. This makes sense. And the Omelet With Ham 1050, same as on the box. This retort pouch has a little bit of interesting texture in a couple of spots here, looking like it's kind of getting ready to fail, but it certainly seems to be solid. Alright, we'll just let these two pouches heat up in some hot water for a few minutes and check everything else out. Alright, I made a little bit of a decision. I'm going to change how I'm doing this video a little bit. In the interest of trying to keep the time under control, I'm going to split this into two parts. Part one is going to be this complete review of the 1991 MRE, and then part two will be the menu number 4, Omelet with Ham from Steve1989. Two things about that is it should keep the length of this one somewhat under control, like I said, and also part 2 should actually be a lot quicker because most of the background information will be taken care of. Now we'll go ahead and take a look at what we have here. Here's the crackers. These are 26-year-old crackers. I was actually hoping to get to this review back before 2017 started, so I could say it was a 25-year-old MRE. But now it's even older. Now it's 26 years old, over a quarter of a century. Let's see if these 26-year-old crackers still have a hiss. Yep, there's a little release there. These just smell like crackers. Just what you want. Pretty boring, but that's what you want when you open this up. And they're pretty intact too. Standard MRE crackers. That smell like dry plain crackers. Now these don't have the salt on. A few years earlier they were more like saltines. I mean, there's obviously salt in this, but these are a little more like the modern ones in that they're pretty smooth. I'm going to try out the cheese spread on that. And because this is 26 years old, I'm going to give it a good kneading. Yeah, so at the risk of further damaging the lamination, which it is, I figure this thing has been sitting in here for over a quarter of a century. It's had plenty of time for the oils to separate, and I want to give it a fair chance to actually be eaten. So I just gave that a really good kneading, and I don't know if you can see, but the lamination, you can actually hear that it's coming off. It's separating. So that's not a great sign for the packaging, but we're opening it anyway, so it's not really a problem. Ooh, wow, it smells like cheese, but not good cheese. This is probably not going to prove to be very good. You know, it's just slightly off. It doesn't smell rancid. It doesn't smell horrible. It's just not exactly right. But it does have that familiar MRE cheese spread smell. You can't deny that. Get it all out of here. Yeah, now it's that smell is filling up the room. A little on the pale side, but it could be worse. Could look a lot worse than that. And despite all that kneading, it's still pretty clumpy. Whew. Yeah, it smells kind of like a different kind of cheese. Something a little more along the lines of blue cheese, if you know what I mean. It smells aged, but not in a good way. And I have to admit, I'm a little surprised the amount of kneading I gave that. I really thought that would mix up a little bit better than that. But it is what it is. And of course, when you get right down to it, what it is 26-year-old cheese. This is the oatmeal cookie bar. Looking forward to this. Let's see if this has a hiss. No hiss, but you could hear the release. And the insides of these things do have a little bit of the packaging smell to them. Nothing smells off on this, but I think you get a little bit of the retort pouch smell in there. Just a compressed cookie bar. Kind of looks like compressed wood, sawdust. We'll take a look at our caramels. And these have a date code too, 1023. That's about all there is to eat in this one. So we have a few beverages. We have the orange beverage-based powder. And for those who, that controversy of whether you add the powder to the water or the water to the powder, this actually does say in the directions, dissolve contents of the 34-gram envelope in 12 ounces of cold water. So that's what we'll do here. Same thing. It smells like orange beverage-based powder, but with a little bit of a chemical sort of packaging kind of a smell along with it. This is in the days before the carbohydrate electrolyte powders. Give that a good stir. And I'll probably stir that again before we drink it. And we have our coffee. We get the Taster's Choice Instant Coffee. Let's see how this looks and smells. It feels pretty loose in there. It doesn't smell like coffee. And this is going to sound weird, but it just smells a little more like coffee in the cup, but in the package, the only thing I can describe this as is if you've been to Disney World, it smells like the inside of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. I know that doesn't smell like coffee at all, but that's the only way I can describe it. It kind of reminds me of when you're in that dark cavern going through the water, and if you take a whiff, it's sort of a, don't know how to describe it. But anyway, that's as close as I can come to describe it. Pirates of the Caribbean. Here's some National Brands non-dairy creamer. Since it's non-dairy, hopefully this will be fine too. Looks good. And no sugar, which is fine. As you'd expect from sugar. As I always seem to say with the MRE review, since I'm not a big coffee person, it smells like instant coffee. And when you're dealing with something that's 26 years old, that's not a bad thing to smell like. And the last thing before we get to the entree on the side is the cocoa beverage powder, type 1 fortified. Said this many times, it's a classic. Cocoa beverage powder is something that's in the earliest MREs, something that goes back to the C-ration days and earlier, and it's still around, and it's still good. Hopefully this 26-year-old example is still good. It smells just like it always does. Alright, and that just leaves us with our omelet and potatoes, which are very hot. Let's try out the omelet first. Oh, and unfortunately, you can feel this is pretty full. It's pretty squishy here, and the tin notch is actually below the line where it seems to be, so this could be a little bit messy. Yeah, I never really like that when you open it up and it's kind of like a sponge and it sort of oozes out at you. But, hey. Oh, wow, that looks good. Or not. And the potatoes. Open these both up and take a closer look at them. It seems to smell okay. A little darker than I remember them being, but not looking too bad, and obviously the smell is kind of the important thing. That seems to be okay. Here's your omelet, and all things considered, this doesn't smell all that bad. It doesn't look appetizing at all, and for as much of a reputation as the omelet has, I've actually never had this omelet with ham. I've only had the later cheese and veggie omelet, which I thought was horrible, to be honest. It's probably my least favorite MRE entree of all time that I've tried. This one, it doesn't seem like it would be any better. It's even older, but it has ham. And to me, that goes a long way in making this a bit more palatable as a dish. I don't know about this one specifically, but we'll see. Yeah, there's not too much to say about the potatoes. They're little diced potatoes, not like the sliced ones they have nowadays. But they actually seem kind of firm. And the cheese sauce seems to be a little bit on the dark side. Not as in Star Wars, but as in color. But as always, the proof is going to be in the tasting, so let's try this stuff out and see what survived 26 years of storage. These smells are kind of intermingling. It's mostly the cheese smell, but it's not a great smell. Let's see how this omelet is. This sort of tan chunk of, I guess, egg. Not a great texture. I don't think it ever was. I don't think it's age related, but there's a little bit of ham here, so there's chunks of ham in this. I'm waiting to see if I get that that weird feeling in my mouth and throat. So far it seems to be okay. And like I said, this is a 1980s vintage Entree. This obviously is from the early 90s, but they've come a long way since then. And considering what was available back then, this actually isn't horrible. Wouldn't be my first choice, and I'd love to trade out of it. But it is edible. Actually looks very similar to the chicken loaf and the ham and chicken loaf, which, despite the name, were two MREs that I actually liked back in the 80s. It's going to be interesting to try out the Steve1989 one because I think because of the storage, it appears that this must have been stored pretty good, because this is definitely not horrible. It's not hasn't gone bad, which is obviously saying something for a 26-year-old omelet. Yeah. I don't think I'm going to eat the whole thing, but I think I could. If I really needed to, in a pinch, I think I could actually eat that. See how the potatoes au gratin are. Hopefully they haven't become potatoes au rotten. Yeah, I'm starting to get that feeling on my tongue. I think from the omelet. I think maybe I've had enough of that. That's a little bit weird. I don't think it came from the potatoes, even though I didn't feel it until I got the potatoes in my mouth. These seem to be okay. They do have some firmness. Cheese is a little bit off. Let's wash that down with some of this coffee. Which I don't taste anything off about that. Between the coffee, the cream, and the sugar, it seems like everything held up okay. Let's try the cracker. As I said, it smelled fine, but you want to give that a taste too. Yeah, it tastes fine too. And the cheese spread is interesting. It has that familiar cheese spread smell, but also has a strange, really strong kind of an odor too. Like I said, it kind of smells like an aged cheese, like something you pay a lot for from a cheese specialty shop. But you wouldn't expect it coming off of a MRE cheese spread. That's strange. Yeah, that's not good. Not good. I think this could be eaten. It doesn't feel, or it's got a musty aftertaste. Kind of tastes like MRE cheese spread, and then it's this weird mustiness after you've gotten the initial taste. So I don't think I'm going to eat too much of that. Whew. Yeah, well, I think that's the worst of it, I hope. Let's try the orange beverage base drink. It tastes a little bit funny, but I think it's just because it's a 90s vintage, and they probably changed the formula a little bit since then. It doesn't taste off. It tastes fine. Try the oatmeal cookie bar. Doesn't seem like the most exciting thing, but I have a feeling this is going to be the best thing in this entire MRE. Very welcome after that, and that. And it tastes just fine. Actually, I'm going to take one of these caramels. I'm going to try and heat it up in my hand a little bit. Try and make it a little more pliable. And we'll try one right out of the package. See how hard this is. It kind of smells like plastic. It has sort of a burnt smell to it. That's that kind of the smell that I got when I opened up the accessory packet. I'm not exactly sure why, but yeah, it's actually pretty soft. Not going to break your teeth at all. A little bit hard to judge the flavor, just because of all the other stuff we've just eaten, but it does not taste fresh. It tastes more like plastic. I don't think it's bad, but despite not being terribly hard, it's also not terribly good. It tastes more like plastic than caramel. It kind of tastes like, this tastes like cheese with a musty aftertaste. This tastes like plastic with a caramel aftertaste. And another savior, as long as this is good, a little classic cocoa beverage. And that is good. I think the only things I'm going to finish in this are the oatmeal cookie bar, the cocoa beverage, and possibly the orange drink. And I suppose, actually, I was going to save this Tabasco just because it's actually nice that it's 26 years old and it's still viable here. But since it can be used, I think we'll go ahead and put a little bit on the omelet. A little bit at the top doesn't look that great. And you know what? The whole neck is stopped up. And so I guess it is showing its age a bit, but a toothpick, a great tool that I really think they should still have in MREs. And that should do the trick. There it goes. Let's see if that masks the flavor at all. I do kind of consider Tabasco sauce to be an underrated survival kit item. Makes stuff that's not edible a bit more edible. It basically almost completely hides the flavor of this thing. And in this case, that's a good thing. Nowadays, MREs tend to be a lot better, and you really don't need to hide the flavor. But in something like this, you might want to. Alright, I think I've had about enough of this one. But overall, I think you really have to say that for something that's 26 years old, this thing really did hold up very well. Thank you very much to Name Not Found, also known as NNFmreinfo, for sending this to me. And be sure to stay tuned for part 2 with the one from Steve1989. Thank you for watching.